Welcome learners. This is a session on analyzing event environment. So far we have dealt with what event management is, an introduction to it. Excuse me. Event management as an introduction, the kind of strategies that we use for event management. We also dealt with the objectives of events. We discussed what is the budgeting and market planning for events. And now in this session, we're going to talk about analyzing the event environment. So this session will deal with pest analysis, SWOT analysis, internal resource analysis, competition analysis, threat points, sustainable event management, benefits of sustainable event management, practices in SEM, and the post-event evaluation. So largely, as you can see, the way this session has been spaced out is more in terms of analysis. Since we are talking about the environment that events operate in, we're talking about the various kinds of analysis that come into picture due to this. So let us begin with the pest analysis. To simply define, pest analysis is a type of situational analysis in which politico-legal, economic, socio-cultural and technological factors are examined to chart an organization's long-term plans. When I say all these factors are operational in charting out the plan of an organization's progress, let us discuss what these factors are and how do they affect. First thing is the politico-legal factor. When I say politico-legal, it greatly deals with the government stability, the kind of spending, the policy formulation, the taxation that is involved during business, the employment law, who can be employed, who cannot be employed, like after the time globalization has happened and a lot of FDI has happened, people have started setting up their concerns in different countries. There are various employment laws, as in certain majority percentage of that country's people will be employed in your factories or in your organizations that you have set up on the land, another country's land. So also there are certain environmental regulations, because environment has become a huge concern today in the world. We all understand how it has corroborated with the objectives of our progress. So it is important that environmental regulations be taken care of. So this again is a politico-legal concern. And then there are trade policies and there are tariff decisions. All of these together, these factors, they comprise the politico-legal environment. The next is the economic. The economic concerns in a business environment, in a business setup, comprise of inflation, comprise of the kind of interest rates. Now the interest rate is there for the business that you're operating in the business environment. So interest rate for that, the unemployment and the exchange rates when we talk about intercontinental or intercountry trade, and then stock markets. All of these are the economic concerns with which we deal. And then there are socio-cultural concerns like the demographics of a place, the education policy, the health sector, the safety, income and age distribution. All of these things talk about the general specifics of people who are there in a society, as well as the cultural norms in that society. The age distribution will also comprise of the population growth rate. Like say for example, India is said to be a country which has a majority youth population as compared to Japan, which is largely an aging country. So socio-cultural factors are important when we're conducting business in a country like that. Then technological aspects, the research and development activities that one is doing, the inventions which will lead to further, like say for example, the invention of the internet has led to so many various aspects of businesses, so many various aspects of social interactions, so on and so forth. We know how it has touched lives. Discoveries, various kinds of discoveries, the patents, say for example, during the pandemic when we produce a medicine or a vaccine, it will be patented by the people who've produced it, licensing and innovations. All of these together are termed under the technological aspects that must be considered when we're talking about pest analysis. Now, pest analysis is able to give a detailed understanding of the macro environment of the business. So when I say macro environment, there are two kinds of environment. One is the micro environment, whereby you communicate directly to the community of the people of which you are a part. And then it is the macro environment. Globally, where do you stand? How are you placed in the business market of a country as compared to another country? So all those concerns are a part of macro environment of the business. So pest analysis, since it touches political, legal and economic and socio-cultural and technological aspects, it is talking about the kind of business environment that a country is providing to any business. So this forms the macro environment of the business. It will also lead to better strategic planning. So you can formulate the strategy depending upon, say for example, the economic aspect is the interest rate. So if the repo rate or the interest rate is higher, how are you going to operate in that kind of a business environment? Or if the unemployment is much more, how do you think the government policy will affect your business? So there has to be a better strategic planning which will come as a result of pest analysis. Then there is the forecast on the future issues that may arise from time to time. So when you know that the economic growth in a certain country is not too good, in times to come there can be certain predictions that can be made based on the various research reports, based on the past trends, based on the global market trends, etc. And accordingly there can be certain timely action which can be formulated and taken when needed. So pest analysis that ways forms a very important aspect of analyzing the business environment, for not only for event but for businesses in general on a larger basis. The next kind of analysis is SWOT analysis, something that I've been talking about often whenever I speak about various concerns. Like when I say SWOT, it is advisable to conduct this analysis after pest analysis, because pest gives you a larger goal. It gives you a larger picture of what is going to operate in a certain country or in a certain business environment. But when I say SWOT, it is more pertaining to you and your community, you and the competition, you and the business environment. So simply defined, SWOT analysis is a tool that identifies the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats of an organization. Now, the SWOT analysis is to take the information from an environmental analysis and then separate it into internal and external. So, SWOT analysis cannot be taken to be juxtaposed to pest. In fact, like I just said, that after pest, SWOT follows. Why? Because pest gives you a holistic idea of what the political legal environment is, what the economic position is and what the socio-cultural norms are. In contrast to this, or how do you place yourself, how do you find yourself as a business being placed in such kind of an environment? So socio-cultural norms can become your strength. Say for example, if you're going to operate in any Asian country, since you're from India, when you're operating in any other Asian country, the cultural norms are not so much of a concern, since India itself comes in the Asian continent. But when I talk of going to the Americas, the cultural norms, the social strategies, social things are so different over there that you will have to adapt and adopt according to that. So SWOT analysis takes the information from the environmental analysis, the larger analysis, which for example pest, and then separates it into opportunities and threats which come from outside. So internal are strengths and weaknesses, S and W, and external are O and T, opportunities and threats. Now, let me just give you a few examples of what S, W, O and T stand for. When I say strengths, some examples can be location of the event. Where is the event going to take place? If it is in the center of the city, in the heart of a city, obviously it is better reached. Then innovative product or USP of the event. What is so innovative about it that will draw people and get greater footfalls and what is the unique selling position of the event, what makes it special, why will people come to attend it. Experienced and skilled HR. Human resources, it is important that they be skilled and experienced in such kind of events, because you cannot operate very well with people who are the first timers. If they're working under suitable supervisors, then it is fine. Otherwise, it can go haywire. The entire event can go haywire. Then of course, the marketing expertise is one example. When we have better marketing expertise, we know who we are marketing our event to, how we are publicizing it, how we are communicating about it, etc. So this again becomes a strength. So all these points that I'm covering can become a strength for any organization. Also the specific performance. Since a company or an organization has been into this business sector for a very long time, the specific performance in this case is being judged by their past performance. So obviously there will be greater chances for performing well, so which will emerge as a strength for that company. Design, the way you've designed the event, over how many days, or over how many hours in a day, or what kind of engagements have you created during that event for the participants, or what is the take home point for them, and then what are the various awareness issues that you have raised. So all of it comprises the design of an event. So while you're engaging children also, you're engaging mothers also, and you're engaging housewives also, you're engaging the bread earners also. What kind of an event design will it come into? That is again a strength of any organization, any event. Quality processes. When we talk about processes, what kind of quality processes come into picture? High capital. That again becomes a strength. If you have more money to spend, if you have better visibility, you have better presentation, when you have better publicity, then it adds to your event strength. Strong goodwill. If people have been believing in your organization for a very long time, it becomes your strength, because then they are not very open to changing their choice. So strong goodwill is another important strength. Suppliers, whether they have been supplying in time, whether the delivery has been in time, whether the material that they're delivering is of good quality, all those things count towards your strength. So if you have a good band of suppliers on you, that counts as a strength. The timing of the event is also very important. When you're creating an event and the event is coming up in a certain manner, at a certain time, it will obviously be better received as compared to a time when it is, as compared to an event being organized with a bad timing. So, say for example, you're talking about how in an aging population, how to address problems of calcium deficiency or osteoporosis or things related to that. This will not work very well if you're talking to teenagers, because probably if you were talking to adults, this event would have borne much better fruit, because they would have been concerned about the parents maybe. But teenagers have a different kind of exploratory kind of a mindset, and they would not be interested in listening so much about osteoporosis. Maybe about bulimia they would be interested in listening to. So ideally, what is the timing of the event and who is the target audience that you're speaking to becomes important. Any other aspect that will add value to the event will count as its strength. When we talk about weaknesses, the lack of marketing expertise can be a weakness. When you've not had enough, when you've not practiced enough, or when you do not have enough expertise at hand, it becomes a weakness. Because if you're not able to market your event properly, probably you will not get enough footfalls. Then the location of the event, where and how it is located, how it is placed, and what kind of footfalls are you expecting will all depend on that. So bad location could be a weakness. Lack of quality output could be a weakness. Damaged reputation. Like when we were talking about strengths, we said goodwill. A strong goodwill counts as a strength. Similarly, a damaged reputation. Say for example, a product, a health product, hasn't been so good. In fact, it has been found infested with worms. Obviously, the bad reputation will go a long way and people will not like to come in for that event. Lack of capital and suppliers, of course, that is the most basic, because if you do not have enough infrastructure on you and if you do not have the startup capital on you, probably you will not be able to organize the event in a manner that you thought you would. Lack of goodwill, that is another weakness, and lack of skilled human resources. That is a weakness too. If you do not have enough people who have the expertise to perform various tasks, since in event management it is more of hands-on doing. It is more of planning and execution. The implementation part is very important. So if you have lack of skilled human resources, it counts as a big weakness for any event management company or an event that is going to be held. Timing of the event, bad timing will make it a weakness because it will not help you earn any return on investment. And then any other aspect of the event that will reduce the value of it will be counted as weakness. Now let us look at the opportunities. Any emerging marketplace. So say for example, there is space for entrepreneurship. There are greater number of startups coming in the market. So any emerging marketplace will provide you with greater opportunities, like say for example, first mover advantage. You could be the first in, say for example, e-commerce in India. So that will give you an emerging marketplace whereby the entire world is open for you to explore and you can use that first mover advantage for yourself. Another opportunity could be in terms of expansion in new set of audiences. So far you were concerned about say health foods only for people who are sports people. So people who are into sports and all, so protein shakes and everything for them. Now you're also looking at the elderlies. Like I was just talking about osteoporosis, calcium deficiency or optical nerve damage, things like that. So if you're preparing health foods for this section of the society, expansion into a different vertical is also an opportunity for any business. Mergers and acquisitions, this of course I've discussed before and I will be discussing this with you again in my session when I talk about integrated marketing communications. Mergers and acquisitions happen when there is some common benefit for the two organizations to come together. So the two common organizations will be merged together and there will be more acquisitions happening because of that. Why? Because they will be strengthening their positions in terms of their brand value, in terms of the market value, in terms of the shares. So as a company, they will become more valuable to the business environment as such. So that is an opportunity. A market that was previously occupied by your competition. Time and again we hear of companies who shut businesses for various reasons. They can go bankrupt or any reason due to which they could be shutting their business. So that is again an opportunity because so many customers, so many audiences who have been attached with that brand, with that company may now be yours. So that is an opportunity for you to encash on that aspect, on that segment of the audience. And of course the change in trend. Earlier we used to see different kind of publicity happening on traditional media. Now is the time for Facebook, for social media, for all other various social media platforms which give us an opportunity of connecting with the consumers directly. So there is a change in trend. This change in trend also amounts to opportunity in any business environment. And internal resource analysis. When I talk about IRA, internal resource analysis, I talk about budget, I talk about manpower, the raw materials, the venue requirements, software and hardware requirements, and the knowledge management. So these are the various things that you would require in order to plan and execute an event in a suitable manner. So this is about the internal resources that are already available with the event management agency. These internal resources will help you decide how big an event or what scale of an event can you proliferate to. So this is called the IRA. Then let us look at competition analysis. Competition analysis involves identification and assessment of strengths and weaknesses vis-a-vis the competition. So while we were talking about SWOT analysis, we were talking about our own strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. Now when we're talking about competition analysis, we're doing the same SWOT analysis vis-a-vis the competition. So first and foremost is while you want to study the competition, you should first know what your own product is like. And you should have an understanding of the customers. I have spoken in my last session about the target audience and their profiling, and why psychographic and demographic profiles are important in order to understand their choices, their habits, and the kind of decisions they are expected to make. So understanding customers is important, understanding the brand value. Whose brand value? Your product brand value as well as the competition's brand value is important. And then the marketplace. What kind of a market is it? Is it a kind of market which is a free-for-all? Is it a kind of market where government has a greater say in the policy making, in the taxation system, in the number of employability that you're providing, in the corporate social responsibility efforts that you're making? How is the marketplace? That kind of analysis needs to be done. So this, whenever you're doing all these analysis together, while also looking at the profiling of your competition, that is known as competition analysis. Now, while we're doing this competition analysis, we also need to look at the threat points. There can be two kinds of threat points. One is the parallel events. You're creating an event, you're conducting an event. Customers might get divided in case there are more parallel events of the similar kind which are taking place. So if there is a, say for example, a fashion show or a book fair that is going on, and at the same time there's another book fair going on, obviously the customers tend to get divided. And one has to ensure that event dates do not clash with any other important event. Otherwise, parallel events can be a threat, an unnecessary threat to your event. Irrespective of the kind of analysis you've made, the kind of competition analysis you've done, the kind of pest analysis you've done, the kind of SWOT analysis you've done, still, if you don't take care of these things commonsensically, this kind of a threat point can lead to, showdown of your event. And another threat point is substitutes. Substitutes are always available to customers. When I say substitutes, it might, I'll give you an example of a music show. So if you're holding a music event, a concert, and at the same time a new good movie of a favorite film star has been released, there is quite a possibility that for fun, for recreation, for entertainment, your audiences might just get divided. As compared to a point of time where you're not having any other distraction, in terms of a movie or in terms of another concert or in terms of any other thing that is happening. So whenever a substitute is available to the consumer, obviously the footfalls will be divided. So these are the two threat points that I wanted to talk about during all these analyses. Now let us look at the second aspect of this session, which is sustainable event management. When I say sustainable, social and environmental obligations are important considerations. You cannot not look at considerations which deal with the society, because certain social costs are involved while an organization is operating in the environment. And the environmental obligations, we know it is a global concern today. When I say social cost, it is the cost that people around are paying because of the event that you're organizing, or because you have a factory there, or because you're operating in that environment. You're a part of it, so there can be a social cost that people around you in the community will have to pay. So social and environmental considerations have become very important today for sustainable event management. So whenever we're talking of sustainability, we're talking in terms of society and we're talking in terms of environment. It should be taken up at an early stage of any event, and the team must be well informed, and there should be motivations, there should be rules and regulations made to follow them. Now when I'm talking in terms of event management, what do I mean by sustainability is what we will see when we look at the tips. So first let us discuss the benefits of sustainable event management, SEM. Consuming optimally will obviously reduce costs, and hence more return on investment can be seen. So ideally, if you are able to consume optimally, you will be able to reduce the costs that are involved, which is obviously of good benefit to you as an event organizer. More the number of green events, more the importance of green products. And more the importance of green products, the better is your goodwill. Because everybody gets impressed if a profit-making organization, if a profit-making event is going to do something for the society, is thinking of the larger social good. So thinking green events will bring greater goodwill. It also helps in influencing others to go green. Why? Because this becomes a USP. For people who are concerned, who are educated, who understand the importance, and these days even school children understand the importance of going green and environmental concerns. In such kind of a state, given a choice between going to a green event and a non-green event, most people would prefer to go to associate with something which is seen as socially more responsible. And hence, it is also an influencing factor. Also, it gives you the benefit of being the pioneer and setting benchmarks of sustainable event management. Now, let us look at the practices in sustainable event management. So, when we're talking about going green, when we're talking about creating an event, at the same time being more sustainable and socially responsible towards the environment as well as the community, how do we actually do that? Let us look at the practices. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Now, this is one principle, if well followed, it will lead to a green event. So, you have to reduce the consumption, you have to look at the reusability of it, and you have to look at the recycling of it. This will make it green, this will make it more environment friendly. Choose your venue that is very close to the public transportation, one, so that everybody does not have to come in through their own cars and they don't create any environmental pollution. One may also provide pollution-free shuttles or vehicles at important points from where people can be picked and brought to the event. Then one has to choose accommodation at environment-friendly hotels. Suppose you're organizing an event which is of higher magnitude, which involves people flying in from other places and getting to stay in that city for a few days, you must choose environment-friendly hotels. Choose suppliers who follow sustainable practices or insist that they should follow them. So sustainable practices in terms of, again, the same principle of reuse, recycle and reduction. Minimize the use of paper. If at all papers are needed, use recycled papers. Use non-toxic stationery. For example, markers and whiteners, etc. are required, which are often cheaper if they are chemically made. So try using non-toxic stationery. Event proceedings or any other reading resource could be circulated electronically instead of creating hard copies of the events, of the event proceedings or conference proceedings. For food, use environment-friendly plates and glasses that are easily decomposed, minimize food wastage and have an exact head count. And the leftover should be immediately given away for charity. That is the best way of sustaining and inclusivity. Place different bins with instructions to throw wastage depending on the type of waste. This will save time and make recycling possible. Use cloth napkins instead of paper because it obviously can be used multiple times after washing and cleaning. Minimize use of cans, cups and bottles by replacing it with larger containers. Avoid use of polluting items, instead use natural materials like jute and grass. Avoid power wastage, wherever possible use daylights. Use zero emission equipment. So no carbon emission should be coming out of the equipment that is being used. Save water and prefer wet cloth cleaning over washing. Instead of using buckets of water and for cleaning a place, use wet cloth cleaning. Use compost toilets that do not use water or toxic chemicals. Use renewable energy wherever possible. Most importantly, monitor the execution of all these tips. All of them together will make your event environment friendly and green event, but only when it is monitored properly and it is seen that all these practices come to use, that you will be able to create a green event. Now let us look at the last aspect of this session, which talks about post-event evaluation. Post-event evaluation helps in estimating what was expected and what was achieved. When I say post-event evaluation, what are we evaluating? We are evaluating the event that we have conducted, that we have implemented, the plans that were made and executed, and how well were the results obtained. So what we were expecting is one thing, the projection, and what we've actually achieved is another. So looking at the difference between the two, the gap between the two is the post-event evaluation. The evaluation should be done at different stages of development. Now, what are those different stages of development where evaluation should be done? One, at the planning stage. So once you are ready with the plan, you evaluate, is this the right way to go about it? Are we doing it right? Cross-check, verify, evaluate. Pre-event, right before the event. Like in research, we do a pilot testing. Similarly, before you run the actual show, before you produce the actual event, do a pre-event analysis and evaluation. Is there something that can go wrong? Are there various things that we have kept a check on? Implementation is the third post-event evaluation, third stage of evaluation, I'm sorry. Implementation is when you're actually executing the plan that you've thought is the best. And while implementing, what is the various kind of evaluations you're making? Where are we going wrong? Checks and balances required at different times. And then of course the post-event evaluation. Once the event is over, the audiences are gone, how are you going to evaluate the event? So when we're talking about these four stages of evaluation, we also need to know how do we evaluate? What do we do to evaluate at various stages of event management? Through feedback surveys on observation of participants. In my last session, I said that research in event management involves qualitative and quantitative researches. So it could be surveys, which means quantitative, and it can be observation, which means qualitative. It can even be FGD. You can call back a few audiences, 10 to 15 of them, and then create a group discussion and see that the feedback comes to you in a more prolific and in a more trustworthy manner. Prepare a checklist and mention all aspects on which feedback is needed. What are the various aspects on which you require feedback? Make a checklist, tick them. Collected data can be interpreted keeping the event goals in mind. Once you've collected the data, you can interpret it looking at the objectives, just the way it happens in research. You look at the objectives and then you see what the data is speaking about those objectives. And what are the questions that you're going to look at? You're going to look at various questions, various aspects like, did the event meet or exceed budget estimates? How many people were expected and what was the turnout? What is the general profile of the attendees? General profile as in psychographic and demographic. Which marketing tool pulled the maximum audiences? This will help you decide the media mix for the next event. So which is the marketing tool that pulled the maximum audiences is important to decipher. What was the sponsor's profile? Who were the people who came forward to sponsor your event? And how do they stand benefited? Why? Because this kind of a research finding answers to these sorts of questions will help you prepare better when you're holding your next event. Did the participants like the lodging, boarding, food and other facilities? Based on these findings, a research report for future reference can be made. So these are the various questions that need to be answered while we're preparing the research report for any post-event research. And that is all for event management today. Hope you found it beneficial. And again, I would repeat the same thing. Event management is nothing but common sense. So be aware, use your common sense, commonsensically events. Thank you.